Okay, yet another pasuk about speech. Okay, as I pointed out last time, it seems like a lot of these pasukim are about that. Berov devarim lo yechtal pasha v'chosech with a sin chosech sefasav maskil. Who would like to try the initial translation?
With a lot of words or things, there will be no lack of negligence, iniquity.
Okay, so I believe we've had this word before, or was it not in our Monday night shiur? So there are three translations of pasha. There's no, I guess the general term that Art Scroll likes to use is offense, which we'll see that in later, but it can mean either rebellious sin, um, uh, negligent sin, or generic sin. Okay, so we'll just like leave it as that right now. I think offense can is the best English word that like tolerates all three. Okay, so that's the first half. You want to go on?
One who or but cuts his lips, like chops.
So chosech is, I don't think it means to cut or chop. And if it does, then I've never seen it used that way.
Withhold.
Withhold. Okay, one who withholds his lips.
Oh, I know what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of chasach with the stuff.
Yes, Ashkenazic problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Maskil
is discerning.
Yeah. Is see, you like saying discerning. I've noticed this before.
Yeah.
Yeah. You like saying that for that and for Bina sometimes.
Yeah, it's Vuna.
Is intelligent. I think.
Yeah.
So the intelligent is one word, and then there's a secondary meaning of maskil that is not as common, but it's a different meaning that has nothing to do with it's not an intellect synonym. Anyone know the other one? The pasuk they usually quote, which I don't think you can get it from without the context, is "Vahi David b'chol derachav maskil," but again, that's not going to help you without the context. So successful, and you can see how the two are related because obviously, if you're intelligent, then that ups your odds of success. Okay, so yeah, okay, so that's our English, and okay, so I guess I got to say Avital because Avital's first of many shiurim. So what we do is we do the initial translation, and then we do minimalist mafarshim, and then we do English translations, and then we do questions. Okay, so minimalist mafarshim. So Mitzudah says Chosef is Indian minia kamo velo chasachta. Anyone know where that phrase is? Come velo chasachta. Bereshit 22:12. I'll give you a hint. It's about Abraham. Who can complete the phrase? So this is by the Akedah. So you did not withhold your son from me. He says it's minia. So minia also means to prevent. So let's just say prevent. Okay, one who withholds, prevents his lips. Oops, sorry. Yeah, so that's Mitzudas Tzion. Okay. Sadia Gaon translates it like this. He says, hold on. Beribui hadavarim, in a multitude of words, lo yechdal pasha, offense will not be lacking. Okay. V'hachosech sfasav mikach miribui hadavarim maskil, and one who withholds his lips from this, from a multitude of words, is intelligent. Okay, so he just clarifies what you're withholding your lips from an abundance of words. Targum, I think, is just straight up translation. Besuga de mile in a rov devarim. Yeah, that's just the same. Lofasik chova. You could translate chova as liability. Okay, so I'll just put that there in case we like it. Liability instead of offense. Udachasich sifavase suchosana. And one who withholds his lips is intelligent. Okay, Our scroll says, in an abundance of words, offense will not be lacking, but one who restrains his lips is wise. Okay, again, I don't like that because they're messing with words. Chacham is wise. Maskil is intelligent. Even if it can mean other things, I just don't like mixing it when we don't have a reason to. Living Nog says, when words are many, sin cannot be avoided, but he who restrains his lips is intelligent. Okay, that's pretty much the same as what we have. Alter says, through much talk, misdeed will not cease. So he learns it as cessation as opposed to prevention. But the shrewd man holds his tongue. Shrewd, I don't like that. And he says tongue, I think holds his tongue because we say that in English. We don't say holding your lips. All right, let's delete that. Okay, so I think we're up to the questioning stage now. So what are the questions here? Oops, gotta hide the mafarshim.
This seems very generic. Like, you know, like if you know, if you're not careful about your speech, it's going to be bad. If you are careful about your speech, it's going to be good.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So this is going to be the number one challenge for this pasuk. Okay, because it sounds very generic, and it sounds like topics we've already covered in this parak. You know, about like how the way a fool speaks and how he speaks without thinking and everything. So this seems very generic, obvious. What's the chidush? What's the new insight? Okay, and again, we asked this about every pasuk. Here, though, that's going to be the main challenge.
Oh, sorry. Can I challenge that question for a second?
Yes.
How is it generic and obvious? I mean, all the pasuk says you're just speaking a lot. I mean, it doesn't. He's not. The pasuk isn't saying you're speaking something that's negative or positive.
Okay, so then I
I mean, except for the.
What must you say? You must say either that point is not obvious to Isaac, or is he's including that into what he thinks is obvious. You know.
I mean, I think the question is, what does multitude of words mean?
Okay, so what? Oops, sorry.
And,
what is the meaning of birov devarim in a multitude of words? Yeah. Okay, good. So you are right, even if you, regardless of the status of this question, that this is going to be one of the major candidates about where the idea is going to come from. But okay, so actually, let me reiterate something. So a couple of sessions ago, we had a new person in shiur, and she asked me after shiur, she said, "You guys talked about the chiddush and like the new insight," and she said, "What do you mean by the chiddush?" You know, and she said, "Do you should you look for a chiddush in every pasuk?" So so how would you answer that question? What do we mean by the chiddush, and should you look for a chiddush in every pasuk?
I think I'd say if there was no reason to say this, then Mishlei wouldn't say it.
Okay.
Ironically, he would be doing exactly what this pasuk is saying not to do.
Sorry, who I'm doing that, or Isaac's doing that, or what are you?
No, he's saying if Shlomo were like said things that there's no reason that he would be violating this pasuk.
Yeah. Anyone want to add to that?
Right. I disagree with that.
Okay. Wow. A lot of counter points tonight. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
I just felt like being bold. I thought Mishlei was geared towards like the regular people. So like in that sense, like as long as there's a practical outcome, it doesn't really matter how baseline the idea is.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So that is a good counterpoint. So so let me without answering, let me just say you're both right, but can someone explain in what framework each of you is right? Well, and then also answer the question of should we look for a chiddush in every pasuk? You know.
I think someone who's just like reading through Mishlei could gain a lot from just reading it on a basic level and understanding like pshat, I guess.
Yeah.
Or you could analyze each pasuk in their own regard and gain like more conceptual ideas from it.
Right. Okay. Good. So, yeah.
For like a pasuk being said for like psychological reasons is also a reason for the pasuk to be said, because as you've said many times, pasuk could Mishlei can be summarized in Ezehu Chacham Haroes Anolad.
Right. Who is wise one who sees the consequences of his actions?
And the reason that we Yeah, and Mishlei is showing us new insights about it, but also affecting, like, it's supposed to affect the way that we think about things. I think a good example of this is the fact that there are pasukim in Mishlei that are repeated verbatim.
Right. Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I think what everyone's saying is correct. I'm just going to say, I'm going to answer the way I answered, which I think encompasses what you're saying. Is on the one hand, Schiffer's right that Mishlei was written for multiple levels of people, and like it says in the beginning, Mishlei was written for the Pesi, it was the naive simpleton, the Na'ar, the youth, and the Chacham, the wise person, and the Navon, the creative thinker. So it's not like Mishlei can't be teaching basic ideas; it's teaching it for those elementary audiences, and for those people, this is going to be the first time that they're hearing this idea, so it's useful for them. However, if an idea is obvious to you, then you should look for something new, because it either means, well, first of all, it either means that you're on a different, you're in a different audience, but at the very least, you don't want to waste your time, and there are more sophisticated ideas to be gained. So if you just are confronted with something that seems like an obvious idea, you should dig for a chiddush. Even if someone else would find this obvious meaning as a chiddush, you should dig for a chiddush. And yeah, there will be a point at which you max out in Mishlei, where like you'll, you will not be able to see any more ideas, but I don't think we practically have to worry about that right now. At least I don't. And so we'll cross the bridge when we get there. Then the second point is what, and based on this, there is going to be a sliding scale for chiddush. So let's say you look at this and it looks obvious. So you're going to dig deeper to find another idea. But for the other person, they can be content with that idea, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, second point is what Isaac said, is sometimes the idea is it's not a new idea in the sense that intellectually you already know it, but it's applying it to a particular that you have an emotional block to, or that there is some resistance that you have to work through, or some emotional factor, and it's not aimed at your mind, it's aimed at your emotions. And so it might not be a chiddush in terms of the intellectual point, but it's a chiddush in terms of your emotions need to see this in a different light. Yeah. So regarding Isaac's question of this is obvious and Ariel's counterpoint of this is not obvious, I think both can be right. I mean, if Isaac has seen enough pasukim about speech where like this seems obvious, then he would look for a nuance, and Ariel already is finding a nuance, and maybe those are exactly the same positions to be in. Okay.
Can I ask an unrelated point? However, it is a mythological point.
Sure.
If there's a pasuk out there which resulted us in coming up with an idea based off of our, I guess, thought process or svara or whatever it is, right? And that's pasuk A, and then we find another pasuk B,
yeah,
that basically says exactly what we came up with in our thought.
Yeah.
What do we do in that situation?
You mean it says the exact same, pasuk B says the same thing that you came up with for pasuk A?
Yes.
Yeah. So Rבינו, I forgot if we've seen that, but there's a Rבינו Yona somewhere where he explains an idea and says, this would be a good explanation for our pasuk, if not for the fact that we already gave this idea elsewhere. So we must look for a new idea here, So he has that exact case, and he does seem to say that we should look for a new idea, and then Mishlei is not just going to repeat the same idea again.
Right.
The
or
question
the reverse,
is,
right?
Or the reverse, yeah. And the question is how you know which one is which. Meaning, does it mean that you got the idea you were missing something when you did pasuk A, or you're missing something when it did pasuk B, and that you just have to figure it out on a case-to-case basis.
Cool.
Yeah, and I will give one more methodological point though, is that sometimes, like, and I've said this in this Monday Night Mishlei before, but sometimes you are working on a pasuk and it seems like you're arriving at an old Mishlei idea, at one that you've seen before. So there are two ways around that. One is you artificially three ways around it. One way is you try to find the foothold, the nuance, and assume that the new idea will come from there. Two is you artificially force a new way to look at it. Like you do one of the mafarshim that you've never looked at before, or you take, let's say, like you take the secondary translation of like successful instead of intelligent, or rebellious instead of offense. And then the third way is you take the cliche idea and you just keep pushing and delving deeper and deeper into the cliche. You lean into the cliche idea until you find something new. And those are 3 ways I found to get out of those, where you're encountering a repetition. Okay, more questions and problems here.
Yeah, I have a
I
question.
got like, oh, okay. I'll wait.
Sure. Is being a masculine like a result of withdrawing your lips, or is it like is it just a sign that you're withdrawing your lips? Is it a sign you're a masculine, or is it a result from withdrawing?
Okay, good. So is being a masculine, so is all right, I'm gonna try to say it this way. Does restraining your lips make you into a masculine, or is it a sign that you are a masculine? Yeah. Okay, good question. Yeah, okay, good. Sarah, you had a question?
Yeah, it's not really a question. It's more of like a thing I noticed about this.
Yeah.
The second half of the pasuk is like talking about like a specific person, but one who holds his lips, like is intelligent or successful. But I feel like the first half just being like more vague without giving an exact label of like if a person, it's like with a lot of words or things, there will be no lack of offense. I think that can be implying that it could affect numerous people instead of just one person. Like you're dragging other people into your foolishness. So maybe that's a point of difference in this pasuk. I don't know.
Okay, so let me just make sure I got the first point. Is that you're saying that the second half identifies this person as a masculine, but the first half doesn't have like a parallel.
Yeah, like it's not like a one who, it's like with a lot of words, like, and to me that shows that there's something different there, and it's not singling out a specific person.
All right, that is a good observation. Yeah, I'm not going to write it down because it was good. It was just an observation, but that's good. I'll tell you, let me give you a little teaser, okay, about approach we're not going to take. Anyone remember? Okay, anyone remember last week's pasuk? A similar observation we had. I'll get it up on the thing while we're looking at it. I know it was a long time ago. So check this out. Hold on, let me just stop sharing. Share Al HaTorah. So last week, so here is our pasuk. Here, last week we had Mechase Sina Sifse Shaker Umoti Diba Huksil. So one who covers hatred has lying lips, and one who expresses slander is a fool. So one of the Mefarshim, who we're not going to do, says that you should treat this as one long pasuk, and the Huksil is the opposite of maskil. And so it has that same, I think we had this question last time of the first half of the pasuk didn't diagnose him. It didn't say this person is a fool. It only said he's a fool for the second half. And similarly here, Sarah's pointing out it's describing behavior and then it's identifying this person as a maskil, So we're not going to take that just because I did not like the approach that commentator took, and I don't want to do two psukim tonight. But I just want to point that out. Okay. Other questions?
What's the pesha here?
Yeah, okay, good. So what is the pesha here? How do we translate it, and what does it mean? Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why is the first half of the pasuk written in a negative? Like there will be no lack of offense.
Yeah.
And the second half is just like his lips, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So I also had this question. I also didn't exactly know what the best way to formulate it is. When you say written in the negative, like lo yechdal pesha, is that what you mean? Like will not? Yeah. Why is the first half written in such an awkward way? Offense will not be withheld. Instead of what would be the normal way to say it?
Like there will be offense or whatever.
Yeah, there will be no offense, right?
No, there will be offense because
no, there would be offense because there's no lack of offense.
Oh, there's no lack of. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm wrong. There will be offense. There will be offense. Yeah, that would have been an easier way to say it. Okay, good.
I also have a basic question.
Yeah.
On the second half of the pasuk, first of all, what are the parameters? And I mean, I guess it's really like the same question. So what are the parameters of it? And also like, is it true in the sense of, and again, this is related, is it true in the sense that like, is that even true? Because meaning obviously it's connected to the first half, but if we had that alone, like if someone just never like spoke and always withheld, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So regarding, actually, let me write down your first question and then respond to the second thing. So what are the parameters of restraining your lips? In other words, how much, right? Like that's what we mean by the parameters.
It doesn't say in what circumstances you would do it, which is what
circumstances, right? Okay, so I think we'll read this inside later on, but Rביnu Yona says regarding your second point of is this true? We'll ask that anyway. Is this true? Okay, and the first half seems true, even though we don't. I mean, it's easier to say. So Rביnu Yona says for the second half, it's like he's responding to your question because he says there's another pasuk that says even someone who is foolish, if he closes his mouth, then he'll be considered a wise person. And then Rביnu says that's a different idea. So he acknowledges the same question. Yeah. Okay, good.
I just want to point out though that withholding, you can hold back one word and still be withholding.
Right. Yeah, and that's the question. How much or to what extent? Yeah. Okay, good.
I might be nitpicking on the language a little much here, but is there a difference between Zvarim and Sifatav, and like what would be the difference there?
Okay, so is there a difference between Devarim words and Sifasav lips? And if so, what is that difference? Oh, unrelated to Mishlei, by the way. Just you remind me because you said nitpicking about the words and remind me of the Malbim. If anyone wants, Al HaTorah recently put up the Malbim on Shemot in English for the entire Yetzias Mitzrayim story, chapters Shemot 1 through 13, which I meant to look at because I feel like Malbim is so wordy, but he's very good. And I feel like it would just be like an effort to slog through the entire thing in Hebrew. But if it's in English, and then, if you need something in English to read before, to get yourself into the Yetzias Mitzrayim mode, then just wanted to, I always got to like shout out to Al HaTorah here. Okay. What else? Do we have all of them yet?
Who's the audience, obviously.
Yeah. So can we be more specific than that? Who is the audience?
No. How do you be more specific?
I mean, here's what I would say, and maybe this is kind of a forced question, but even if it is, I think it's good. Is the first half talking about a certain kind of speaker, of talker, or is this a trap that any of us could fall into?
Oh, interesting. Why do you ask the first part of the question?
Oh, or actually, you're right. It's the entire thing. Is each half?
No, I meant, how did you come up with the first half of that question?
How did I come up with that?
Yeah, what in the pasuk triggered you to say that?
I think because the second half is talking about second half could be talking about a certain type of person, one who restrains his lips or a restrainer of lips, just like you happen to do it now, and it feels like the second half is talking about a certain type of person because it's calling him a maskil. So that's why I was wondering about this first half. That would lead me to believe that it's talking about a certain type of person, but maybe it's just talking about like, something that anyone could slip into.
I mean, that's interesting because, couldn't you have just learned that whatever the multitude of words are, you can control yourself by withholding your lips. If not, then you'll just be subject to negligence.
Right. So I guess
which would apply to everyone.
The question that I'm wondering about though is like we've seen, for example, the fool is prone to talking in certain ways, and for him, it's going to need to be like a change in terms of the way he relates to people, the way he relates to like words. So that's like one type of fix. The other type of fix is like, I need to be on guard against this particular type of phenomenon in particular types of situations. Like it's a much more particular individual decision scenario type thing.
Oh, I understand. Meaning
Yeah.
like one is on the person and one is on the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I want to point out another methodology point, okay, which is the question that Ariel asked me about what led me to think of this. This is a question that like I was recently informed that perhaps some people don't know how to review shiur in yeshiva, and that some people need guidance in how to review shiur. That question that you asked me is a great type of question that you should ask when you review shiur. So let me just recap what happened. I made a statement. So Ariel made a statement. He said, "Who is the question? Who's the audience?" I elaborated on it and split it into two categories. And we could have just moved on, but Ariel said, "What led me from the pasuk to formulate the question that way?" And I hadn't thought of that in conscious terms, but Ariel's question forced me to articulate my intuition, which led us to more methodology. So asking how someone made a move is good for you and is good for the person, because the person, in this case, I'm the person, might not have known. I didn't know why I came up with that, but it's just all the Mishlei intuition, but Ariel forced me to articulate it. So I think that was a good question. A good question and a good question. Yeah.
A minor question, maybe a very minor question,
Sure.
is I think it's a little interesting, the order of the pasuk, meaning like sometimes he puts like the quote good half first, and sometimes he puts the bad half first.
Yeah.
And I just find that interesting.
Yes. Yeah. So I think that is probably where Sadigon gets it from. That one, in abundance of words. You know what? I think we could delete things. I think it's pretty clear now that this is words, right? I mean, we could say things, but like, sounds like they're talking about speech. I'm gonna say abundance of words. In a multitude of words, there will be no offense lack. There will be no lack of offense. And Sadion said, "And one who restrains his lips from a multitude of words." So Sadigon is, I think that's where he's getting it from. And according to him, you couldn't really do it the other way. If you said one who restrains his lips is intelligent, but in a multitude of words, then there will be no offense lacking. Then it would be ambiguous. The first half would be ambiguous. So it's good observation. I don't know if it has to be this way, but according to him, it seems to have to be this way.
I also have a minor question. I think like this might be even more. I don't know why I'm making it into a competition. It's just a question.
Yeah, it's the most nitpicky minor question.
Why I presented it like that. Anyway, so wait, hold on. I have to remember my question.
Okay, that's fine.
It came back.
It's so small, you forgot it. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Yeah, so I was just wondering, because in the past few psukim, I feel like really for this whole parak, we've had a lot of words be used, either like lips, mouth. I don't know if tongue has ever been used here. I'm pretty sure like there are psukim that. Yeah. So are we supposed to still be thinking of what the difference for each of those terms would be? Just like in general, because I feel like you said, this whole parak is really about communication. So should we even be listing that as a question?
Yeah. So you're nitpicking on Mayan's nitpicking question, right? Because Mayan said
nitpicking, yeah.
Right, as the lips thing, So again, you know me. My assumption is that they all mean the same thing, unless you can explain it in a way where it adds a nuance to the main idea. And we have had success with that method, right? We have said that Sfasav is like your external or superficial speech. And so like, I'm not dismissing that method, but my go-to assumption is that it's just talking about, like when Alter translated, he said one who holds his tongue, because that's the idiom we say in our thing. Maybe the idiom that they just said is withholding their lips, so yeah.
Can I ask a clarification question? I guess on Rav Sadigon.
Sure.
For the way that he's saying that, it's like that you're preventing is the multitude of words. Is he specifically clarifying that like it's only when there's a multitude of words that's the issue, that it's not when it's just singular or like something else?
Yeah. That's exactly it. So, and in fact, I'm going to just use that to elaborate on question number 2 here. What is the meaning of multitude of words? So actually, do I want to elaborate on here or restraining? Oh yeah. Under 6 is better. In other words, how much to what extent and under what circumstances? Also, are you just refraining from saying a multitude of words, but you're still saying words? Or are you restraining your lips entirely? So Sadigon is taking a firm stance on that. He's saying you're avoiding saying a multitude of words, but you're still speaking. Other Mefarshim are going to end up saying that you are basically like striving to minimize your speech per se, or just not talk, you know? Yeah. Okay, I think we're probably ready to start thinking about it. We could always add questions later. Okay, so for those who are joining us for the first time, so what we do is we take a minute to think, and then we
Could I ask one
listen.
more question?
Oh yeah, sure.
So is the pesha, is it one that's coming directly through the row of devarim, or is it in the circumstance of row of devarim? Like, is it a sin with lips, or
Yeah.
not?
So let me just add that to here. What is the pesha? So how do we translate it? What does it mean? I could have made this into a separate question, but I'm just going to keep it here. And what is the relationship between the pesha and the rov devarim? Okay. So you know what? I'm just gonna, so I can get this all on screen here. Okay. So now is thinking time. So we'll do thinking time, and then we'll hear half answers and half baked ideas first. Okay. So let's take our thinking minute. Okay, who has some half approaches or answers?
Okay, I have like a minor
Okay, good.
observation.
Go ahead.
Just because I'm noticing that you defined like Pesha in 3 different ways, I really think that if you look at question number 9, like who is his audience, dependent on what the kind of offense is, I really think you can tell if this is a generic thing or if this is a specific thing.
That's a really good point. Right. Yeah. So let's say take the most extreme case of a rebellious sin, like saying something like horribly, you know, anti the other person. Yeah, then that would be a different, very different audience than like a sin of negligence. That's a good observation.
Also, just an observation. Oh, man.
No, go for it.
Also, in terms of like, I was just kind of like comparing the like no lack of offense and like the intelligence. So I think that because of the fact that it's saying no lack of offense, that there will be a lacking in intelligence, that kind of is the opposite. Because it's like a lot of times it'll be like juxtapose the 2 parts, it'll be almost opposite. And then that basically, because you're lacking intelligence within the first one, it's very easy to be either offensive or any of these things specifically, versus when you are when you're lacking intelligence and you withhold it, that's when you become intelligent.
Okay, I I think I got the first part, and then if I talk it out, then maybe that'll lead me to get the second part, so you can help me. So you're saying that since the second half is being identified as intelligent, then the first half, it would seem, is talking about a lack of that, whatever type of intelligence that is. Was that the first thing you said?
Wait, can you say that one more time?
Yeah.
Sorry.
The fact that the second half is talking about, is saying that this person is intelligent, means that the first half, the person in the first half lacks that intelligence. That was your first point, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, just question based on that. Where's Isaiah's question here? A sign of. Oh yeah, question number 3. Are you taking a stance, Avital, on question number 3? Are you saying that, because it sounded like at first you were saying that for the first half, the fact that he's not intelligent means that he's going to engage in this or fall into this mistake, whereas the fact that he is intelligent means that he will restrain his lips. But then you also said that restraining your lips makes you more intelligent.
I think that it's the third one, that restraining, because isn't like masculine, like isn't that like present tense but like active, I want to say.
I don't know, but I also don't know if it has to be read as a verb. Like maskil is the name of a kind of person. He is a maskil, you know, as opposed to he. In other words, I think if you read it as maskil, then it would mean like he is. No, I know I'm not saying anything different. Then he's it means he is successful. Then it could be used as a verb. Truth is, I don't really know about the grammar enough to say. So feel free to take it however your intuition goes.
Are we ready for full blown answer?
I just want to clarify. So, were you saying that that the restraining of lips makes the person into intelligent, or are you saying that it's a sign of intelligence, or are you saying it's both somehow?
Well, I'm not sure about the grammar situation, but I think it could be either.
Okay,
but
fair enough.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I understood you.
I have a question on that approach.
Yeah.
So according to Avital's reading, could we not say, or I guess any reading in general, could we not say that this could actually be the same person? Like, do we have to interpret this as 2 different people?
I thought she was saying it was the same person, meaning like, and I thought she was also saying that it was a way to transfer from being unintelligent to intelligent.
Avital, what were you saying?
Well, I was just like, I was thinking of it as the same person. I wasn't thinking of it as different people, but that somebody who is doing this is somebody who, like, someone who's like talking a lot is not lacking. It's so hard with the
It's hard. The double negative is very hard. Yeah. Not lacking offense.
Yeah, he's not lacking offense.
He will commit offense. Yeah.
Right, because he's lacking intelligence.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking it was the same person, that when they withhold, or it could be a different person, withhold,
right. Thinking,
then
it's going to make you more intelligent because you're So that's speaking to this question here of, is this a certain kind of talk, or is this a trap anyone could fall into? You are really saying it's something that anyone could fall into, and you could even be the same. You could be described as both, you know.
Yeah, and in different areas, I think it could be different things.
I think so also. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, on what Avital just said, I was going to say that how I interpreted this was that I think that this really just depends on the circumstances and the context, because I feel like, let's say if, like, I don't know, like you're really nervous about something, or like you're nervous about talking to a certain person, then you'll be more likely to not have that intelligence.
Right.
So I feel like it really could be the same person. It just depends.
Yeah, I agree that I think just the fact that even that we can probably, I don't know about all, but most of us could probably relate to being in certain circumstances or with certain people, like Rivki was saying, where you just find yourself talking a lot, or you've made a mistake because you've just been blabbing on and on and on. So I think that fact alone means that at the very least, it's relevant to scenarios like that, you know. And then if it's a personality type, then like, you know, then even more so.
Can I add on to that?
Yeah.
I think also the fact that the beginning half is like a double negative, and the second half is like is it choseich? Yeah, choseich.
Yeah.
it seems that's like active. I think that is saying that the first half is something that like naturally occurs. Like it's it's like a habit, and the second thing is like something they have to work to stop.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So I do like that. It does, that's a good explanation for why it's the double negative. That it's just gonna it's gonna happen. You know, like Pesha is just gonna happen. You know, this event is gonna happen, and I think actually now the more I think about it, maybe it is using an intelligent, intentionally ambiguous term that it could, maybe we had this move before also, but like it could be a negligent thing that you say, or you might really upset somebody like by, you know, like it's just going to be a happenstance that you're going to end up saying the wrong thing, and it's unavoidable if you're having an abundance of words. Yeah. Okay, so could we? I know Ariel, you wanted to say a full idea. Could we just take a stab at what Rov Devarim means and then how it leads to Pesha? Because I feel like we're gonna have to confront that no matter what. And I think like no matter what interpretation we have, it's probably gonna focus on that. So Ariel, if you want to say for that, you can. Yeah.
I was actually gonna answer that
Okay,
first.
go ahead.
Maybe you could say that Rov Devarim just means like what is important to say versus what is non-relevant to the given situation.
Okay.
Or well, it could actually be either for the situation or for the person itself. Like I'm still swinging back and forth on exactly when it should be, but the point is important versus non-relevant.
Okay, so then let me just push that a little bit further, especially with the question about the parameters. So what if the scenario does require lots of words?
Whatever is relevant to the individual you're speaking to, or about, or presentation.
So what you're saying, now I think I get what you're saying. So you're saying that it's not talking about a word count like in the document. It means that if it's excess, if it's more than you actually need to the point where you're adding non-essential stuff, then that qualifies as an abundance. Yeah, that's a good definition. I like that. Yeah.
Can I further a little bit what Ariel is saying?
Yeah.
So I think like from the lesson of Chosek, where he's like withholding.
Yeah.
So it seems to me like the person is that person is like stopping and thinking about what they're saying.
Yeah.
So they're sort of like using their intellect and not saying everything that comes to their mind, versus the Rov Devarim person just says, you know, lots of things.
Okay.
And it could go anywhere.
That brings us into a different question, which I don't think warrants being listed as a new question here, but I'm going to say this and you tell me if this makes any sense. Is the abundance of words the symptom of a problem, or is it the problem itself? And what I mean by that is, let's say like if you said it was the symptom of a problem, what it would mean is, let's say like in Ariel's interpretation, that person is not distinguishing between what's necessary and unnecessary, you know, and that's why there are Rov Devarim. The other way to take it would be that just saying a lot of words itself, even if you need to say it, like just saying a lot of words itself is a problem. Yeah. I'm fine with the way Ariel is going though, but I just want to point out that that's a split that you can take.
I feel like there might be a way to like hybrid those two options and sort of say like a person who will, whether we're looking at it as a type of person or a scenario, but let's just go with scenario for a second. So in a time when you're going to be saying a lot of words, the fact that you're saying a lot of words and not being careful with your words will also mean that you're more likely to say offensive things because you're just, you know, you're not filtering.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Ariel, do you want to say something else, or you were just?
Yeah, actually, I want to, Zach, I actually got this idea from you because remember, I asked you for some advice about a conversation I was having with someone, and whether or not, you know, when he already agreed with my position, I was reinforcing the position. I was like saying more than necessary, and then I was just like arguing with myself at that point.
That's a good example of a mistake. Yeah, that's a good example of a mistake.
Like, I was saying a lot more than was necessary, and like thankfully, like he didn't like argue back. But
yeah, no, but that's a great example of that, right? Is that you had a mission had been accomplished, and you kept on going, and then that exposes you to the liability of a pasha of like making a mistake, and
because you may see something else that he may actually argue with.
Yeah, right. Like, so let me just, this is a good time to we're not going to go into the Mefarshim to see full ideas, but I just want to show you a couple of things in the Mefarshim here. So hold on. Okay, so Radak says like this, and try to ignore everything except for the stuff that I show you, okay? Because to not bias yourself. Radak says, "Ata masir b'nei adam shelo yarbu l'daber," and now he's warning people not to increase their speech. Because a person who is speaking a lot is not able to express his words b'mishpat, meaning like in the proper way, and that they should be favorable in the ears of all who hear them. Sometimes a person will speak with one intention, but the listeners will hear something else, some other idea that is not good in their eyes. So he's saying that basically the problem is the quantity, which stems, so it's two things. He's saying it's the quantity that stems from not being careful, meaning you could be careful with one sentence, but if you're saying 100 sentences, you just can't be careful with every sentence. And therefore, there is a risk. The more you speak, the more you're going to risk saying something that's going to be misunderstood. So the problem is coming from the quantity, and that is only a problem because you can't think carefully about everything that you say. Now compare that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Should I let you say the other point, or should I?
No, go ahead and say what you guys say, because I got to find the other point also.
Well, I was just thinking, like, if words are kind of like sculpting, so like if let's say you have a block of clay, and words are to clarify your idea, which right now is shapeless. Yeah. So every word is like a cut of, from that central block. And certainly one could say that it's admirable to be able to create a nice, figure or whatever it is in the least amount of cuts. But one could also say doing it in as many cuts as possible allows you to fine tune the details of whatever it is that you're sculpting. So I sort of feel like words could be similar. Like, yeah, you could take a minimalist approach and just say it with the minimum amount of words, or you could take a different approach, which is like try to hone in every detail with extra words.
Right. I mean, that's the story that they tell about Rav Soloveitchik's upbringing. Is he said not only were we expected to say a good svara, like to say a good conceptual theory, but if we said it in one too many words, we got a potch, and if we said it in one too few words, we got a potch. You could argue, and apparently that worked on him, but didn't work for all the kids. Yeah. So the Meiri though says much more like Ario, because he says Inyano she'af hachacham ein lo roi laharich yoser midai af b'divrei chachma ki halashon karova lehikashel. Maybe he is saying similarly. I was focusing on the yoser midai. He's saying that even if you're speaking in words of chachma, you shouldn't speak more than enough. So he was saying the standard is more than enough. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back though. I just wanted to show you that there were a couple of different approaches there. So what are we saying so far? So we're saying that it's circumstantial, number one, and the definition of too much is based on what is necessary and what's not necessary. And either the mistake is failing to differentiate between what is enough and what is not enough, or it's like the Radak was saying, which is just the more you talk, then the more you're going to get into the chances of being misunderstood. So can we now look at, so that was all for the first half. Can we now look at the second half and say which one fits, which interpretation of the first half fits better given the second half? So one who restrains his lips is intelligent. What would you say?
Yeah, I don't want to be biased, but I think it fits in with my half.
Okay, go ahead. Say it.
I think it's because he's just saying in the second half, if you can control yourself, control what you're saying.
Oh.
What?
No, sorry, go ahead.
It sounds like you really want to say something.
Yeah, we found an important question: is how do you restrain your lips?
Oh.
Yeah. So you're saying control. So that's what that's what made me realize, like, that's not sufficient. Like, how do you do it? You know?
Can you explain that
Yeah,
question?
no, you just
Yeah. The question is like this: is let's say you have this problem of talking too much, right? Or let's say you have Ariel's problem of like not not realizing when you've already won the argument. You know, you're just going more, right? So the question is, how do you change it? You know, like, is it just a matter of forcing yourself? Like, is it like, you know, is it a certain like mentality, mindset? Are there conscious things you can do, or do you have to like just get good at knowing what's essential and what's not? Do you have to be a good speaker? Do you have to take, you know, AP English? And like, no,
Is that really what I feel like? That's almost outside of what this pasuk is addressing.
it's entirely possible that it is outside, but I feel like since this says one who restrains his lips, then in order for the pasuk to be effective, then the person who has this problem needs to know, how do I do that? Like,
well, I think that like my version of the question that I thought you were asking was why restrain? Meaning first we're talking about like, meaning opposites would be a lot of words and a little words.
Yeah,
so one
right.
who says a little
That's
words
yeah.
would be, you know, so why is it restraining as opposed to just saying less words?
Right. And in fact, that's really what Ariel was picking up on, whether consciously or unconsciously, because Ariel's definition of rov devarim is basically unrestrained speech, you know.
Right. And I think that Mayan also had like, she took the approach I was thinking about as well when she was comparing it to no lack of offense. So she was using the no lack of offense and restraints to say one was not not intended and the other was intended.
Right. Yeah.
Meaning like you just happen to say a lot of words, whereas if you're intentional, then you can restrain yourself.
Yeah. So I guess, again, that's why I'm asking the second question. Is I think it's clear that the first person is not exercising restraint, but is the solution exercise restraint? Like, just do it. Like, I'll tell you, like, I've talked to a lot of people who have this problem, and like, it seems like they have a hard time just restraining themselves. So is there anything we can do to help such individuals? You know,
I feel like maybe what helps them is understanding how it affects them. Meaning like understanding that one brings ruin and the other brings success is somewhat motivating, hopefully.
Yeah. So that's definitely going to be the first half is definitely trying to use that argument that you don't want to upset someone. So, and that's why I kind of like the Targum's translation of liability, that this is going to make you liable. Like, there's going to be some effect that's going to happen as a result of you making this mistake. So hopefully that helps you. But I'm just wondering if there's anything else you can do.
Wait,
I mean, like,
again?
Sorry.
No, I was just asking if you can explain the Radak's interpretation, because I feel like I didn't hop.
Yeah, so you didn't hop the Radak, yeah. Radak is saying that, you know what, we went this far. We might as well read the whole Radak because it's not that much. So he says, he's warning people not to speak excessively, because a person who speaks excessively cannot weigh every word and make sure that it's going to be received in the way he intends. So inevitably, someone's going to interpret something he says in a different way than he intended, and that's gonna upset them. Aval hamaskil hanavon, but the intelligent person who understands, moneas fasav miladaber harbe, will withhold his lips from speaking excessively. Valkain lo yachati uhu b'nei adam b'dvarav. Therefore, he will not. People will not cause him to sin with his words, meaning by misunderstanding them. He'll only say something in its proper time. So what he's saying is basically, the more words you say, the more you're running the risk of being misunderstood, because you can't weigh every word. Therefore, it's in your best interest to limit the amount that you say and only say something in its time, and then you won't get into this problem.
Wait, so
Can I make oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that, would you say then that it's not about, at the end of the day, how many words you're saying, but more in the, I guess, time periods that you're saying it? If that makes sense?
I would say it's in the entire scenario in which you're saying it, meaning the time period, the person you're talking to, how competent you are in what you're talking about. You know, like you said, like you could be talking to someone who you're very nervous to talk to, and then your self-censoring becomes like impaired, you know, or you're talking in an area where you're very competent and you've talked about this many times, so you could just let your mouth run and you'll automatically say the right things, you know.
Wait,
like
yeah.
like no, I was gonna say it's not often, like I try not to do this, but like sometimes when I would be teaching like a high school class, let's say like for example at open house, when I give the same speech over and over and over again, and like I'll like catch myself like losing interest in what I'm saying, and then I'll like tune in and out of what I'm saying because my mouth is basically just like talking automatically, so there is a reality to that. Like I gave that shiur hundreds of times, and so like so I don't have to worry about like making a mistake in that sense. Like I could trust the automatic processes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, can I give a really quick example to see if like I'm actually understanding?
Yeah.
So it would be more like, let's say if like someone was taking a neuroscience course, just taking one out of the hat. So if someone was taking that type of course and the professor like really knew what they were speaking about, but even if they knew what they were speaking about, because when I said at the end of the day, like let's say the professor is saying the same amount of words, it's just about when they pause. So would you like that is a correct interpretation of what their doc is saying? Like let's say if they really know what they're speaking about, but even if they don't pause at the right times to make sure that like they are being fully understood.
I'm not sure why you're putting the emphasis on the pausing part. That's what I'm not getting.
Meaning the professor could say the same amount of words in a lesson, but let's say if they do the first 75% of the lesson without pausing.
Yeah.
And versus if they did like 50 and 50.
Oh, you're talking about like the people misunderstanding. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely in the best interest of the speaker to make sure that the listeners understand it. And if they can take active efforts to check for understanding, then that's the best scenario, to avoid the redox problem. Yeah. And the fewer pauses, the more uninterrupted it is, the more just like, talking it is, then the more they're going to be prone to allowing misunderstandings to take root and like, and create problems. Yes, Mara, you had a question?
Yeah, it's a little bit of like a general question, I think, but I feel like I would like to have a more explicit by then like a more explicit opposites, I guess. Like the behaviors seem like sort of opposite, although I think we were trying to work out exactly how those opposites are, but also like the outcomes. Like if someone is close to expressive, like does that mean he will lack pesha or is it some other outcome? Like how does that exactly work?
Yeah. That's a good goal for a measure of whether we understand the pasuk or not.
Can I offer a new holistic approach that will also end up with two clear opposites?
Let's get it all out on the table. Yeah. I feel like this is gonna be one of those times when we have to get a bunch of approaches on the table and then sort through them and see which aspects of which ones we like.
All right, cool. So yeah, so this is a different approach. There's a few questions that I used to kind of get there. Okay. One was the no lack of offense, like why the double negative. The other was why this order, like why start with the offense and then go to the success. The other was why restrain, like why use that word as opposed to just less words. And then the final one was what's wrong, with using your words and why, I think Rifki said this in the beginning, like if someone's just saying good things, like why is restraining it, or just not saying anything a good thing. So basically to answer those, I'm going to go along with, I think, Rav Sadia Gaon's approach, looking at this as one person, and then coming up with an inference. So basically, I think we're talking about a type of person, not a instance. So if you have a type of person who is, for lack of a better word, wordy, and they're just very good at getting a lot of words out. And the example that comes to my mind is I remember in college, I was doing a paper with a friend, and well, I don't think we were doing the same paper. We're just doing papers in the same room at the same time. And after like an hour, he had like 5 pages written and I had like a paragraph and a half. And I was just like, like what just happened? Like it was like, and he's like, oh, I don't even think about it. I just start typing and like, I look down and all of a sudden I have 5 pages and I'm like, like I was like jealous, like, how did you do that? And so I think that it's talking about, I think he's talking about 2 types of people, but he starts with my friend and he says like, if you're a person who can just get a lot of words out, then it's on you to restrain yourself. And it's not that restraining words is inherently good. It's good for you. And it kind of reminded me as well of one of my favorite Mark Twain quotes, which is at the end of one of his letters to his friend. He wrote at the bottom, he's like, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't have enough time. I would have written a shorter letter if I did.
Yeah, I just wrote that in an email this week or last week.
Oh yeah, it's a great one. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Because
and so
it's harder to write a shorter letter.
Right. Right. But at the same time, that's talking about, there's two types of writing, like there's short form and long form. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that there's inherently one that's better. Meaning right now he's highlighting the positiveness of short form, meaning like it takes time to condense your ideas into an isolated, paragraph or page. But there is another type of writing, which is long form. And I think that was kind of like back to that sculpting example I gave before, which is where you can be very descriptive and give a long-winded approach, but by articulating yourself well and saying, the nuances in the right place and, stuff like that, it's not inherently worse. It's just a different style. And so I think he's talking to people with like what their natural tendency is. So if your natural tendency is to just get a lot of words on the table, then it'll benefit you to restrain yourself and to learn short form. And that's how you're going to be successful, is by being conscientious and like restraining yourself from like just like your tendency to just like get it all out. But I think he's inferring that if you're a person who struggles to like get even one paragraph on the page, then you should do the opposite. I think he's like the same way a person who's trying to get a lot of words on the table needs to restrain their lips, so to speak. If you're a person who is naturally not going to share their ideas or is naturally going to cut it off too quickly, then it's on you to say the extra few words to fully flesh out your idea. And maybe the story with that rabbi you mentioned a little earlier, forget the name who you said it was about, but when he was a kid, like he was supposed to say the right amount of words. Right. Meaning like there's a risk on both sides. So it's like, if you're naturally going to say too much, you need to try to rein it in. And if you're naturally going to say too little, then you need to try to flesh it out.
Yeah. Okay. So I like the first half of what you're saying. I like, and I think it's an interesting approach because it's not saying that the person is a fool. It's just pointing out a trend and then saying that this will improve you and make you successful if you have this trend. So that part I like. The second part, I guess I agree with your idea that if a person can't, and I've seen this all the time, again, as an English teacher and also just in terms of like as a Judaics teacher, is that there are people who are just not able to get out any words, whether it's like some perfectionism, whether it's some fear or whatever. And like for that person, sometimes you just have to like get stuff on paper, okay, my English students will probably relate to this. Do you guys remember before we did timed writing and then after we did timed writing? And once you did timed writing and you had to write stuff, a lot of people found, not everyone, but a lot of people found that it was just like you became better writers because you were forced to just get stuff on paper, and same thing like in learning is like there are people who will be afraid to say anything in shiur, to give any ideas or give any answers or give any svaras, but then once they're encouraged to just like start, then they'll get stuff out and then that'll help them to work with stuff, So I agree with that as an idea. I think it is definitely not what he's saying here, and the reason why is because first of all, there's no hint whatsoever other than you extrapolating that there's an opposite, in the pasuk. Everything about this pasuk seems to be saying that an abundance of words is going to inevitably result in offense, and I see where you're getting it from, because you're getting it from who you think that this person that the pasuk is talking to.
Well,
but
I think,
yeah. No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say is that if we look at the emphasis as being the restraint resulting in success,
yeah, and
we look at that as a prerequisite, we look at a prerequisite of that as being an abundance of words.
Yeah,
I feel like it's kind of like the exact way you described Sadia Gon's reading and saying like, if a person speaks a lot, then his success will come through restraint. It seems that like the reason why he's saying if a person who speaks a lot, then they should restrain themselves, saying it that way seems like there's a natural implication, meaning like you could have said it differently if you wanted, if you didn't.
So the implication, according to Sadigo, and the way I'm seeing it, is that if you don't have a multitude of words, like let's say you're just a normal talker, then you will not be guaranteed to make this offense, and restraining your words is not going to help you in that regard because you're not in that danger, you know. But you're taking it one step to the other direction of saying that if you have the opposite problem of you have too few words, then you should engage in the opposite. Like,
okay, so I see what you're saying. So I guess I would be willing to compromise the explanation to say that the opposite might not be a conscious effort as much as a keeping neutral, meaning like if you don't have an abundance of words, then it's not the restraint of your lips that will bring you success, meaning like you can continue with
I think that's good. And I think that fits into what Sadigon's saying. Yeah. And again, I agree with you about the idea. I just thought it was taking the pasuk too far. But yeah, so that's a good answer. I like that.
Can I ask a question on his idea though?
Yeah.
I mean, actually, before I ask it, can you just explain the first half of the pasuk one more time? You're just saying that this is just a natural tendency?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right, it's a natural tendency to, I guess it's a natural tendency to say a lot of words or to read a lot of words or whatever it is. So what's the liability? What's the issue with that?
I think it's similar to what we've been. Well, I think it's what we've been saying so far. I don't think that part changes so much. Is that when you speak a lot, at least when this person is speaking a lot, they're not speaking a lot consciously. You know, they're just opening up the faucet and like, you know, words are coming out. And so when you're in that mode, it's dangerous. You know, you can say things that you don't mean, or that if you would have thought about, you wouldn't have said. And so you are going to be much more easily offensive to the people around you than either a person who isn't just like, you know, opening up the verbal faucet, or if you are that kind of person, if you're consciously restraining yourself and thinking about what you're saying first, then, you know, you can avoid that offense.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I think that one of the reasons I read the Mefarshim I read here is because it's important to realize, you know, it could stem from some sort of like lack of censorship, or ability to determine what is important and what's unimportant, like Ariel was saying. But there's also just a reality of if I give a 10-minute shiur versus if I give a 3-hour shiur, there's just more chances for being misunderstood in the 3-hour shiur, you know, because there's just more opportunities for making a mistake, you know, or for the, you know, so it's not even necessarily resulting from a foolishness in the person, although you could take that route. The abundance of words itself.
Could I argue on that point for a second? Is that, so you're saying the more you say, there's more to misinterpret, but one could, like, I feel like you could also offer a counter logic saying that the less you say, the more misinterpretable it is. Meaning, like, if I just say, like,
that's also true. I would agree with that. Yeah, but I'm saying though that I guess there's the chance of misinterpreting it comes from the vagueness or the relative vagueness of not using words. But what I'm saying is that the more statements you make, each statement has its own potential for misunderstanding in a way, you know. So like quantitatively, you're putting out there like I'll give you a good example of this, right? So let's say like on Twitter, okay? So a person can tweet something which is going to be inherently concise, and certainly there could be a misunderstanding that can result from it being too concise. But then let's say you take someone who tweets 100 times a day. I think there is a different kind of risk they're exposing themselves to from putting out there so many statements that are subject to misunderstanding, you know. So I'm not disagreeing with you that there is a misunderstanding that can result from being too vague, but I'm saying that what this pasuk is talking about is the one that comes from quantity, the putting yourself.
So I think that like, I partially agree that like obviously the more you say, the more chances there are for misinterpretation. It's kind of like the more pieces there are in a machine, the more pieces there are to break, so it's like a similar concept. But I feel like it's dependent on whether or not those statements are helpful or not. So like if you've ever taken like those multiple choice tests or whatever, where there's like logic questions and they say like, there's like you have to figure out the order of people in a line or something. And it's like, John was 3 places before Bob and 1 behind Dave. And like, they give you like a bunch of statements about like the order of the people. And like, you have to figure out based off of the statements made what the order is. So it's like the more statements they give, the more helpful it's going to be, assuming that each statement adds information. The moment like you cross the line where like they're now adding statements that might be true, but like aren't exactly teaching anything new about the information you're trying to figure out, then at that point there's only downside and there's no upside.
Okay, so let me show you one commentator that that I think will shed light on the parameters of the pasuk and address some of these questions. And then what we'll try to do, because we're almost close to the end, the official end time, is let's try to wrap it up and see what ideas we emerge with. And then those who want to stay and help us like refine the ideas, then we can do that in the after party. So Rבינו,
Can I just
Yona,
ask on your Twitter example for a second?
Yeah.
Yeah, on your example where that one individual posts like 100 tweets a day.
Yeah.
Right. Versus just one. Yeah, you're right. Like the truth is, there are many things that people can argue with him about. However, is that really what the pasuk is saying though?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know about that, because the pasuk.
That's what the
pasuk could also be saying like there's one topic, one specific message that needs to come across, and people talk every single day. Like you can't tell me that every single day I have to limit myself to like one tweet, because each tweet is revolved around one specific topic.
No,
Meaning,
right.
like,
what the Radak is saying is he's saying that he says the reason why an abundance of words is a problem is because you can't be careful about every single statement you say when you're speaking a lot. Again, you can. I think that's why where the tweet example breaks down is you can be careful about one tweet, but you can't be careful about like 100 statements or whatever number you want. You're just not going to be careful.
So where does he draw the line though?
So it is. I don't think he has to draw a line. I think there is.
Well, why not? Because if one tweet is good, what about 2? If 2 is good, what about 3? Like there's.
And let me guess, if 3 is good, what about 4?
Exactly. So I mean, like there has to be if it's quantity,
there does not have to be a line. No, it could differ for different people. It could be different.
Right, but I guess that's what I'm getting at is that
at the point at which the quantity overwhelms your ability to regulate your speech.
Okay, so I think that's the missing part for me and maybe Ariel too. Is like if we can add in like a qualifier, because like just saying too many is too many is may or may not be true. Like what's too many. So by saying like, oh, if you're gonna speak more than you're able to consciously filter and guard yourself against, then you're in this trap. And then I
thought you wanted something more concrete, but you just wanted the quality, and that is the quality that he's saying. He's saying that lo yuchal adam hamar beladaber, one who is abundant in speech cannot lahotzi kol davar b'mishpat, to express all of his words with judgment, v'shiyu nechonim b'oznei kol shomim, to make sure that they're proper in the eyes of those who hear them. So meaning that it comes from the excess of it. But I think this is also going to address the point. So let me read this Rבינו Yona here. So he says, Rov Dvarim Le'yachal Pasha, Hirchik Rov HaDvarim, Shlomo is distancing you from an abundance of speech. Because a person is not able to orient his thoughts and weigh statements in his mind. It's proper for a person to weigh it in his mind and then to speak. Therefore, this might be a typo. Yitachin, this might be I'll have to check the good Rבינו Yona later. He's saying you should therefore pause in between each word and give thought in between each word. Sorry, let me read that again. Alkein yitachin rov devarim. I'm gonna get the good Rבינו Yona. Give me a second. The one online is not always good. 1910. No, not 1910. 10 19. 10 19. 10 19. He says, oh, okay, good. This is a lesson for why you should use good text, okay? So the one online says this, Alkain Yitachin, and the Alkain, the correct version says Lo Yitachin. It adds the word no or not. So that something didn't register right. Therefore, lo yitachin rov dvarim b'li hefsek u'machshava bein davar ledavar lahashiv al kol davar v'davar miziver chaverav. Therefore, it will not be possible for you, if you're speaking constantly, to weigh your words in order to know whether what you're saying is correct. Okay, so that part is not so different than what we said, is that when you're talking a lot, then you can't really think about it. But this is the part that I think will help us a bit. I'm going to read this from here just in case there's more mistakes. So intelligence, is the analysis from which you arrive at understanding, meaning you do a certain analysis and then you get to the level of understanding, which we've talked about before. Someone who is an analyst, someone who like analyzes things. Lahakir devarim shetzrichim machshava tamid, to recognize things that need a lot of thought constantly. Hu chosech sfasav, he will restrain his lips. V'lo yidaber davar ad sheyushlam lo ha'iyun bo, and he will not speak anything until he has completed his analysis of them. So pause for 1 second. So he's saying that the proper way to do things, the maskil, is a person who will restrain his lips until he can think through what he's going to say, and then he'll speak. Okay, but, and here's the thing, Aval hanavon, that the pasuk is not talking about, the navon, the person of understanding, v'hu shehirgil harbe mechkar sichlo minyanim, he's accustomed his mind to research of many ideas, or analysis of many ideas, and he's arrived at the level of understanding in many things. And based on what he has investigated, he'll be able to understand similar things without a lot of analysis. Because a navon can understand one thing from another. He will not restrain his lips a lot. Okay, so he's saying that there's 3 levels. There's the person who speaks a lot without thinking, and he's going to make a lot of mistakes because it's impossible for him to weigh everything properly. Then there's the maskil, who will restrain himself from speaking until he can think through what he's going to say and then say it. And then the third person, who the pasuk doesn't talk about, and I have no idea why the Rבינו Yona is bringing him in, is the person who's gone past the level of seichel to the level of navon, who he has enough of a deep understanding that he doesn't need to think through what he's going to say before he says it, and he will not be at risk of making these mistakes.
It's interesting because that reminds me of a pasuk we had a while back.
Yes.
That a navon like talks out the wisdom that he knows.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's interesting because the navon he's exercising unrestrained talking there also, but for a different way. That was like in arriving at his ideas. This is like speaking freely about things that he hasn't fully investigated, but like he has very good intuition about, So the reason why I think this will help us is this helps 2 things. Number 1 is it answers Rivki's question about the parameters. And it's saying that it's not necessary for every single person to always restrain their lips. Is you could have expert knowledge on something and be able to talk without thinking, but that's because you've gone through that phase where you do scrutinize everything that you've seen, or let's take like Zach's friend, maybe when you're in college and you're just writing tons of stuff, then like you still are prone to making lots of mistakes. But if you take a professional journalist or professional writer and you just say, oh, can you like write me an article in like 20 minutes, they'll just be able to churn something out that is very, very polished because they'll have all of that, they've internalized all that intuition, So that's one thing. The other thing it helps with is with the tweet example, is that the only reason why the abundance of words is no good is because you don't have the ability. It's because you're not scrutinizing what you're saying. But if you were speaking at a slow enough pace where you could scrutinize what you're saying, then the number of words would not be a big problem. Or if you didn't need to scrutinize what you're saying because your intuition's that good, then that also wouldn't be a problem. So it's drawing the parameters there also.
Can I add another point?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what the Rבינו Yona is saying with the third individual, the Navon, I mean, maybe you could also say that, if you have a specialty in a certain area within, a study, let's say, I don't know, let's say you're studying, I don't know, biology or something.
Yeah.
For an average guy, if he starts saying stuff about biology,
yeah,
if maybe you could say like one thing that's like universally accepted, and like that would, like it's easy for him to defend.
Yeah.
But if he lists like 30 things, and he's not fully confident in all those 30 things, like he'll he could kind of, put himself in a corner. However,
Yeah.
if you have like a biologist who specializes in this field of study, he could list 100 tweets about biology,
Yeah.
and most probably he won't be putting himself in a corner because he's a number in that area.
Yeah, and again, that's because that's because he's done the work of the careful analysis in each of the steps, and then gotten to this point where he can like speak without thinking. Yeah.
Can I ask a clarification question on the Rבינו Yona? Is he saying that the person who's a maskil is thinking through the area before he speaks about it, or he's thinking through what he's going to say? Like, which thing is he saying?
So it sounds like both, because he's saying that he is a bal iyun, mishu who bal iyun, which to me bal iyun means someone who is an investigator or an analyst who analyzes stuff. He will he will restrain his lips and not speak about something until he's investigated it. So it's that kind of person, but also in every act of speech, he won't say stuff until he's investigated it. And I'm sure you've all met people like this, but I had one very, very good psychology professor in college, only one. and he, I admired his, he would never speak about stuff that he didn't look into. Like, we would ask him questions, and like, if he was not sure about it, he would say like, I need to look into it and I'll get back to you on that. And like, I just admired, he was very knowledgeable in his field, but any area in his field that he like didn't feel like he did the research on, then he would have to like, he would withhold his speech,
Interestingly, I feel like that observation, which I feel like maybe many of us have had, fits in very well with the pasuk. Like, whenever I feel like I meet someone who's extremely knowledgeable or well-versed or intelligent in a certain area or life or anything, they'll be the quickest to point out where they don't know the answer to something.
Right. Yes, that's true. Yeah. That's the proper effect of gaining knowledge, is the intellectual humility to realize like your limitations, but obviously it could cut the other way.
Right. But I mean, it also it fits in nicely with the second half, which is like intelligent people are ones that.
Yeah.
Just a side question.
Sure.
Can we say for sure that this is talking on any sort of communication, or is it possible to say that it's only referring to, let's say, speech? Because when you write things down, I mean, I guess now it's very different.
Yeah, that's true. I definitely is talking about speech, and I guess it would only extend to written communication insofar as it resembled speech in this way. So, for example, I think publishing or like writing for publishing is not in this category, but texting is, because I think when people text, it is basically speaking, like they do it as thoughtlessly of a way. So, I think that's true.
Or in a way, sorry.
Oh, no, just really quickly. I have to go, but before I go, I wanted to ask, could we quickly sum up like a practical application of this?
Sure. So let's just sum up the idea and the practical application as best as we can. So what we're saying is basically that, and I don't know whose idea this is at this point, it's an amalgam, okay, is that in an abundance of words, there will not be any lack of offense, because it is impossible for a person, you can think about what you're going to say about one statement, but the more you talk or the more uninterrupted you're talking, you won't be able to weigh everything you're going to say to make sure it's right. And you also won't be able to anticipate how people are going to take it and to try to prevent all the ways that they're going to misunderstand it. So inevitably you will make some sort of offense, and that's going to result in consequences that are bad for you. So the practical application, which I'm realizing as I'm saying now we don't fully have, is Rבינו Yona would say, refrain from speaking about, like, dial back your speech, basically, right? Is that don't speak past that critical threshold. You know, don't speak about things either in terms of a quantity more than you can assess, or don't speak about things that you haven't done research in, you know, until you can do that. And maybe Rבינו gives that last point about the Navon to show that there is, like, we all have this fantasy, I think, of like being able to talk freely and like say all the right things and like not make any mistakes. And Rבינו is saying you can get there, but the only way to get there is through this painstaking, slow analysis and exercise of restraint. You know, there is a type of person who can speak without thinking it through, and the speech will be fine. But like, you know, you have to like take that route to get there. And in terms of like the practicality, like I think those are the two practicality things. Is like, number one, realizing that there are going to be consequences, so don't engage in abundant speech. And the other is that the only way to work on it is by exercising this restraint, which again I was dissatisfied with, but maybe that's all you can do. Like I don't know, like I'll tell you, I didn't even get to our idea, the idea that I came up with my chavrusa, and I also don't think our idea is good. But I'll tell you the good part of it. The good part of it that we said, and I'll tell you why it's not good, is we were saying that the key to this is to do more listening. Is that if the problem is that people tend to go on and on and on, and they fail to listen, and because they fail to listen, then they make mistakes and they don't read the other person correctly, or they don't read the scenario correctly, or they say stuff that you know is not proper to say. So if you restrain your lips to the point where you can like listen to the other person, you will become more intelligent and more successful at communication. Now, I like that idea, and I think it is another thing, Sarah, that practically you can do is if you're in a conversation, you can take active measures to pause and let the other person talk. And that will force you to listen. The reason why I don't think that this is a good interpretation of the Mishlei pasuk is there's a phrase that the Chazal use, Ikar chasam min sefer, that the essence is lacking from the book. And this pasuk doesn't say anything about listening. So that's why I don't think it's a good interpretation of the pasuk. But I do think it's a good idea and a good strategy.
But it can be a good answer
Thank
for
you.
how you practically
How you practically implement it. Yeah. Okay, let's officially end this year now anyway, and because it's officially ending, and then if we have more time, more questions, then we'll talk about it. So thank you for coming, everyone who came, and see you hopefully next week. I need to be, those of you who weren't here at the beginning, I need to be in touch about next week. I'm assuming that there is shiur. I toyed around with the idea of maybe doing something connected with Mishlei and Pesach. I don't know what that is. I was thinking maybe if we could do something with Mishlei and the Arba Banim, you know, and the four sons, because that's a very Mishleic type thing about like defining each of the personalities according to Mishlei, you know. But I don't know. It depends on whether I get to do that or not. And if worst comes to worst, we'll just do regular Mishlei. But yeah, okay. So that's it for shiur. Any other questions or things you want to talk about?
I have a question.
Okay.
Wow, because mine, I still have to formulate it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Mayan.
Okay, so I don't know. I feel like something is missing for me, like some sort of link is missing, just because I feel like the second half of the pasuk, like the opposites are intelligence with something that would be like hurtful, like a sin or something, and I feel like that doesn't really match up for me.
Okay, so I think the way that Rבינו Yona seems to be going is, and he doesn't say this outright, but the fact that he's saying that the first half is someone who doesn't research what they're going to say makes it sound like he's treating Pasha as a mistake, like an error in speech, not a sin. And he's saying that the maskil is the opposite of the rov devarim, because the maskil thinks through everything that he says, and the rov devarim person is just like speaking without thinking. So it is opposite, and it's not a sin, it's a lack of intelligence. It's a mistake that would come like indicate or be advancing something that's a lack of intelligence.
A similar one to that, where it's not, I don't know, you could call it a sin, but it's also not like, it's not about being factually wrong. I don't know if you've ever seen like someone walk into like a social setting, like a party or an event or something, and then they walk in and they immediately just like a million words a minute, just like talking. And like you see like slowly the faces of like everybody around like starts to change, and you're like, you know.
Yeah.
So
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say it's like that. That's like literally saying like, you know, the multitude of words just like includes offenses. Like you don't know. I like as an observer, you know. Please, hopefully I'm just the observer. Is you know, you see people getting offended. You know, so it's not like there's a clear line. You just know it's somewhere in the mass of words. There was something that.
And that's I think where again in the way I learned the pasuk, the listening. When you're just concentrated on talking, you're just not being receptive and you're not observing what's going on. Whereas if you stop and you listen, it hopefully forces you to pick up on those cues, you know, to avoid making mistakes like that.
Well, I recently read a book called the.
Was this one you were telling me about?
No, it's a different book. I'm in the middle of like 10 different books. I have a book for each Mishlei
right,
pasuk.
yeah.
This book, in this book, he says he has something called the fair fight rule. Basically, it means because the book is called The Art of Negotiating the Best Deal, and he basically says that a lot of deals that go horribly wrong is because they do not communicate, and it's because of lack of listening.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you see a lot of arguments, specifically in relationships or in also in chavrusas too, that most people, they just want to say what they have to say and they don't really care about what the other person has to say, and they're just like talking past each other. So one of the things that he implemented which can help is called the fair fight rule. After the person says what they have to say, until he restates what he says and the other person says exactly, they cannot go on to the next point of the conversation.
That's really good. I mean, I that's, you know, we see that from Hillel and Shammai, right? Because Hillel would I think he would restate Shammai's thing first. I mean, there's several sources about that, you know, but it's definitely a good policy in chavrusas. Make sure you're on the same page. And that's also why, like, I mean, I try to do that here when someone gives an interpretation and I say, let me make sure I understand what you're saying, and then I try to restate it, because if I get off on the wrong track, then it could be bad for communication. Good technique.
What I was gonna say, it's very possible that, like, this is what Mayan was saying on a different level. I just don't really get how this is different than like Mishlei. Like, I feel like I just don't see nuances. I don't know.
So the nuance for me, the chiddush for me, is that this is talking about, for me, the chiddush is in the first half, is the abundance of words. Like, we all know that you have to think before you speak, okay? But what this is saying is that there is a pitfall that you fall into from just speaking too much and then not being able to think about what you're going to say. Like, I never made that connection before of the frequency of speaking making you lose the ability to scrutinize what you're saying, and then that leading to faults. Because everyone would agree, if you ask someone, should you think before you speak, they'd say yes, but yet people don't do it. So why not? You know, so there's lots of reasons why not, but the reason that this pasuk is giving is they get too caught up in the abundance of words, you know.
I think sorry. I was just saying, I think it was that same frustration that led me to wanting to look for an inference. And maybe the inference I took was too strong of approach. I feel like I need to analyze that a little more, but at least where we ended up, I think is still something kind of new by saying like the restraint of words is dependent, meaning we've talked a lot about restraining words, but now there's a new dependency, which is a person's tendency to speak a lot. So it's sort of qualifying a theme has existed for a while now, which is like, you know, watch your words. And now it's saying like, that's going to be different depending on who you are as a person and what your natural tendencies are.
And that's why I really appreciated the Rביnu Yona. I still don't know why he went to the Navlin, but I appreciated him doing that because I think it made that point stronger, that it depends on who you are, and different people, based on their relationship with knowledge, have the right to relate to talking a lot in different way. Not the right, but like the ability to talk without worry, you know?
Yeah, I see what you guys are saying, but one more thing. I feel like on what he said, Rביnu Yona, I guess the one thing that I'm confused about, maybe this is you were saying, like, you don't understand why he even went to this extent, but I just don't understand like the practical application of not of making sure that you think before you speak unless you're an expert. I just feel like, oh no, it just clicked. So I was gonna say, like, I feel like that's so impractical. Like, that what topics are you actually gonna have like that level of knowledge? But like I feel like that's half the point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's good. But I think that's an important point. Also, is like just saying think before you speak is really not going to help in many cases. But because it's not going to help with that desire, I want to be able to speak without thinking. But this gives you like a concrete goal that you can apply to each particular conversation in each particular area and see if you can actually like do that. You know.
Well, it's also part of why I liked what you said last week. You said your friend or Chabrusa like identified an audience for Mishlei.
The coefficient is the person who conquers his desires or controls his desires. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like that's a perfect audience for this pasuk in terms of like, how we're structuring it, because just saying think before you speak to like a person who's not thinking before they speak is very difficult. But for a person who's already in the mindset of like, wanting to control their desires and, so that person, even if they're going to want to speak a million words a minute when they walk into a social setting, they now have it in mind, like, okay, well, I'm going to, curb that.
Yeah. And I think this is why I liked Rביnu Yona's approach and your approach that did not treat it as though it's talking to a fool. Because we've seen fools in Mishlei before who are, who can't control their speech. That's like a whole personality type. And you can't tell them this pasuk. That's not going to help them. But yeah, loquaciousness leads to laughs as well. Restrained rhetoric is righteous. Ooh, that's a nice paraphrasing.
I don't even know what that first word.
Loquacious is the word you were looking for, Zach, earlier when you were saying wordy. Loquacious means that you're given to saying lots and lots of words. Like you're prone to saying lots and lots of words. Oh, you're muted. You're exercising restraint.
Yeah, as I was just saying, trying to be funny, like that one word captures a lot. And
yeah, it does. Yeah.
Can I just add one more point about like the question of how to practically do this?
Yeah.
So question number 10, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe can you bring in the Rambam's idea of like the middle path and how like someone who kind of what Zach was saying originally, I think that like if someone who speaks a lot, maybe like the first half of the pasuk is talking about someone who like talks like way too much and they can't really control themselves. And a way to fix that and to get to the second half restraint is to like get like restrain your like completely stop until you could like choose when to and not speak. And the same if you speak too little, then you like talk a lot until you can get to the point of restraint.
Yeah, that I was also definitely thinking of the Rambam's middle path when Zach was talking about his thing, and I was thinking specifically in the Rambam's whole middle path thing. He says that there are two extremes that are bad, and the middle path is good. But he also says one of the two extremes is going to be easier to fall into than the other. So, for example, let's take like overeating and undereating. Okay, he says most people tend towards overeating as opposed to undereating, and so it's going to be easier to. It's going to be how do you say it? Oh, so if you have a problem of not eating enough, maybe eating is a bad example. Let's do.
Well, I mean that rationale you're taking was part of why I was thinking that he used the inference structure.
Right. But this is one more nuance, which is that I'm trying to bring out from the way you were approaching the pasuk is that it's people have a much easier time talking too much than talking too little. Would you agree? I think most human beings have the problem of talking too much rather than talking too little.
That's more prevalent than
right. And so and so for that person, then the middle path is what the second half of the pasuk says. And then like what you were saying before is if you did have the other problem, then your solution would be to force yourself to speak more.
So you're saying that's why it focuses on that side as opposed to the other?
I'm saying if you wanted to take Zach's approach, then that would be a valid reason why it's focusing on that side, because that's a more prevalent problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say something else from the Rambam that we did earlier this year, where the Rambam talked about the thing in Pirkei Avos of it's there's no good better for the body than silence. And he talked about like the 4 categories of speech and then the 5 categories of speech. And like, if you can cut out 3 out of the 4 or like 4 out of the 5, you know? So
I was thinking that originally.
Because yeah, the Meiri quotes that verbatim from the Rambam. And I was like, oh, you know, but both ideas are relevant. Yeah.
That sounds interesting. Is that too much of an idea to share? Or?
Yeah, it's a couple paragraphs to read. I can send it to you though. Yeah.
Can you send it to me also? I feel like
sure.
I just don't.
We didn't go through it. We didn't go through it in Shavuot. Yeah.
Okay. Did we go through? Did we do a pasuk a couple weeks ago about like what the desire is to talk so much? I don't remember if it was with you or if I was.
Maybe. I mean, we have done a lot of psukim about speaking. I'll have to.
At least not like this Mishlei.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I thought. Yeah, I vaguely, maybe I was discussing it with you, Zach, but I don't know. I remember like we were saying something with someone. I don't know who, but like I'll just say it, about where the desire is the desire to speak a lot is because, you know, sometimes the person feels that he wants to help someone, you know, that he wants to share information, he wants to share knowledge. Like that's where the innate, you know, that's why he wants to speak, because he feels his speech can influence people for the better.
You said that.
Yeah, I do remember. I think I do remember I think a one-on-one conversation about this, Ariel, and I actually think it could be helpful here because it might address
how to prevent it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if you're assuming that the desire is to be helpful and that's why what motivates people to speak a lot, and I think that in a lot of cases that is true. Even that person who talks a million words a minute when they walk into a social setting is trying to overcome some kind of awkwardness. But as soon as you tell them, oh, by the way, you're creating more awkwardness than you're avoiding, then like something like clicks and like, oh, you know, so like Ariel's point is like just understanding that talking a lot could be destructive and unhelpful might help a certain group of people not talk so much.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, that's already a level if they have that reaction, you know, but I feel like there are people who just deny it.
I think that we actually might have. I take back what I said before, Ariel. Sorry for like low key attacking you. I think we actually might have done it
a lot. I'm used to it.
Yeah.
Wait, what did you just say? I didn't hear. Okay.
She basically new point attacks me for some reason.
No. Wait, are you talking to me, Zach?
Yeah. Did you just say a new point, or were you just apologizing for attacking Ariel?
We actually might have done this like that idea in a pasuk before.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, one of my biggest regret of the entire year. That's a big statement. My biggest Mishleic regret of the entire year is not taking better notes on what ideas we did. Like I initially, you know, like my Mishlei students know that I like writing 4-sentence summaries of every idea that we do, and I haven't been keeping up with it because I've been giving so many Mishlei shiur and it's been taking so long. But now when it comes time to like reviewing, like I don't want to go back and listen to the podcast, you know. But yeah, so it's unfortunate.
8 times speed.
Yeah, I could do that. I some of you saw this announcement already, but Friday was my 100th Mishlei shiur this year that I gave.
Congrats.
And, thanks. And I actually wanted to mention it during shiur because it is amazing. Like I've learned Mishlei a lot, but doing this much Mishlei, like it really affects my day-to-day thinking, you know, in a big way. Cause I, you know, five days a week on average. Actually, I do it 6 times a week. If it's five Mishlei shiurim a week, but I do it more than that also because I have a student tutor. But if you ever get in a situation where like you can like give Mishlei shiur every day, I highly recommend it. It's really, really good. It's good for you.
I mean, just to jump on the bandwagon a little bit, yeah. I mean, I come to this once a week and it's definitely affected some of my thought processes and
once a week is definitely enough to affect things. Yeah.
You're welcome, Zach.
Thank you, Ariel, for bringing Zach. Yeah.
I just wanted to share that I was like very close to not coming tonight because I was very stressed about a midterm that I have to write. The reason why I'm stressed about it is because it can't be more than 2 pages, but it needs to have a lot of information in it. I think it's pretty fitting that I came.
Yes, very, very, very fitting. Yeah, good luck with that. That's hard. Yeah, I was telling Shifra over Shabbos that like the one assignment I never made you guys do was to write an essay that like you work really hard on, and then force you to cut the words in half, which is what my English teacher used to do, and it's a really good exercise in really knowing what the essential is. So. But
I really think that might have killed me if you.
I think so also. I think, yeah. Whenever I thought about doing it, I was like, no, they're just gonna rebel. They're all gonna drop the class. Yeah.
I have to say though, when you were talking about, I think was like the timed exercise you did or something, it reminded me of a teacher I had in 10th grade who like revolutionized writing for me. It's like until 10th grade, it's kind of embarrassing, but I don't think I was ever able to write more than like one paragraph, like ever.
Yeah.
Like I just like get stuck and like that was it. And then I had this teacher in 10th grade, shout out to Mr. Haberman. He was like, why are you turning, like it was like awful, you know. He's like, why are you turning in like one paragraph? And I was like, you know, I'm just stuck. And he couldn't get why I was so stuck. So he's like, I want you to write a horrible paper. I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, just write the worst paper you can write. He's like, one rule is you can't review anything you've written. Like, don't reread anything. And I was like, fine, you know, and like that changed writing forever. You know, like I wrote like a few pages of like, it was like B material. It wasn't even awful. It was like, okay. And then he just like marked it up in red. I rewrote it. And like, I got a normal paper after that. So
that's
like,
really good. That's a good technique he used.
Yeah,
that also reminds me of another anecdote I heard from an author that she was stuck writing a book. She was like 4 years past her contract or something like that, and like she called another author and said like, "What do I do?" And he said, "Maybe you just have to write a bad book," you know. And he was like, "Look at all the great writers; they've all written bad books, and like maybe this is just your bad book." And then once she allowed herself to like, okay, maybe I'm just writing a bad book, then she ended up getting the book out and then like made it into a good book and like won all these awards and stuff. But she had to like allow herself mentally to like write the bad book. And your teacher thing reminded me of that. Yeah.
And my teacher, my professor in college, my first semester, he made everyone write. The first assignment was write a paper about why school sucks.
Yeah.
And that we had a lot of things to write about that.
I know some people who like writing papers like that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I think now that this has turned into like English therapy session, I think good time to call quits for tonight. Yep. All right.
Thank
See you hopefully next week. And
Thank you.
talk to you later. All right. Bye. And I'll try to remember to send you guys the thing I said.
I literally forgot. Okay.
All right, bye.